It's not unusual for teachers to tell me how frustrating it is to work with a child with Tourette. They oftentimes see the child as being very bright and very capable, but it's very frustrating because the child isn't working up to their potential, or the child has the challenging behaviors that the teachers just can't figure out, and so they get frustrated and they get angry. Tourette is hard, particularly when you have a classroom of 25, 30 kids and you can't give one-on-one attention to this one child. It's a very frustrating situation. Teachers want to help, teachers want to teach. So you got the iceberg, and you got the tics at the top, and you've got the other difficulties underneath. Some people will call them related disorders, some people will call them co-occurring, and some people encourage comorbid. And comorbid sounds like a really horrific word to use, but the importance is that co-occurring means, like if I have pneumonia and I also have a sore foot, those are co-occurring, whereas comorbid impact each other. So if you've got a symptom of difficulty with handwriting, and you've also got symptoms of obsessive compulsive, and you've also got perfectionistic, they're all going to interact and really make it more difficult. I think the most important thing to know about how the symptoms relate to each other is that they do. So if you've got a child with anxiety and you've got a situation where it's anxiety producing, you're going to know that the symptoms are going to increase. So I was working with a fourth grader one time, and the teacher called me and she says, okay, this is not Tourette, because the only time she says it is when I say we're going to have a test or a quiz. And I said, what does she say? And she says, shut up. And I said, well, see, everybody else in the class is thinking shut up or worse. They're able to inhibit it. She's not. Disinhibition is very important when it comes to Tourette. I mean, I really feel when I travel around the country and talk to schools, I say, if you understand disinhibition, then you understand Tourette syndrome. Because all symptoms are urges, and the urges are so strong that sometimes people with Tourette can't inhibit. So it's like they have faulty brakes. So it's an inconsistent ability to inhibit behavior that they know is wrong. A lot of people think that they have to teach them right from wrong. They know right from wrong. It's just that in the moment they're not able to act the way they know they would like to. So it's sort of like if you have a scratch or an itch on a place of your body that's not appropriate to touch in public, you're not going to. You're going to inhibit it, but then when you get to a safe place, you are going to scratch it. So people think that kids can control it or stop it. They might be able to suppress it for a while, but it's going to have to come out. It goes with vocal tics, it goes with physical tics, it goes with obsessive compulsive behaviors, really across the board, and it's highly misunderstood. In my experience of speaking with parents and speaking with people that do have Tourette, when they suppress all day long, you can imagine the anxiety and the frustration. So almost every parent I ever talk to say that if their child suppresses in school, when they get home, they see either a lot of tics, or they do see the anger or the rage or the frustration that comes out. So suppressing is a double-edged sword. If you're in the movie theater, it's probably a good thing to be able to suppress. But knowing that when you get out of the movie theater, you might want to run around the block or do something to get that energy out. Symptoms, they do vary from being very minor, very quiet, to being very extreme. And if a child is clearing their throat, you ignore it. If they're humming, you ignore it. If it can be ignored, you ignore it. And one way that works best is to educate all the class all your classmates about it. Because kids will bully more when they don't know why something is happening. If they do know, there's a whole lot less teasing and bullying. A child will screech really, really loud every 10 seconds all day long. And so that can be an issue. Or touching people inappropriately can be an issue. I actually spoke to a social worker the other day. There was a boy that I think was in 5th grade and was touching people a lot. And she said, so when you have the urge to touch somebody, put your hands behind your back and hold your hands. And that worked for him. It might not work for the next person. The main thing you want to do is talk with a child and help the child develop strategies to manage the symptoms that really are destructive to them or interfering to everyone else. So a lot of kids will get suspended, and I'm even hearing kids in kindergarten getting expelled, which is pretty astounding to me, for symptoms that people don't understand. How do we tell if it's a tic or it's a kid just having some bad behavior? It's not an easy answer, but it really doesn't matter. If it's a tic that is really disruptive, or if it's a behavior that is difficult, you want to work with the kid. You want to help the child. You want to talk with the child and say, okay, we know that you want to be good. We know that, this is not what you want to do. So can we think of a way that we can help you? How can we help you? Or what could you do instead? Can you try something else for a week, and then we'll get together and see how it's working? The classic rule for schools is to use consequences, because we want to motivate the child to do something different. That's fine if there's control over the behavior. But if you don't have control over it, all the motivation in the world isn't going to help you not do it. And actually, it's only going to increase the anxiety, which is going to make you want to do it more. So what we say, rather than punishment or rewards, what we prefer is, again, to sit down with the student and help the child develop some strategies rather than punishing or rewarding. Developing strategies is something that a person with Tourette is going to have to use all their life. So it's starting at an early age. I love it when elementary teachers sit down and start developing strategies, because the kid is going to see, well, strategies work, so that's something that I should do more of. There was a 1st grader I was working with, and he had something called copopraxia, which is, the doctors say it's excessive middle finger activity. And the teacher took him aside and said, I know you don't want to do that. I know you're getting beaten up. Is there something we can do? And so the kid came into school the next day, and he said, I got an idea. If I have poker chips in my pocket, and every time I want to do my finger, I'll take a poker chip and I'll put it in a cup that's on your desk. I think that would work. Now, I would have never in a million years come up with that strategy. So it's so important to include the kid in the strategy. Positive and proactive is the answer. Dr. Ross Green has wonderful ideas and strategies, helping the child, doing something for the child so the behavior is less likely to occur, rather than what are we going to do to him after the behavior has occurred. So for students that are really having some challenging behaviors, we recommend doing functional behavioral assessments and coming up with positive behavioral intervention plans. And what we want to do is we want to look at where the challenging behaviors happen the most and where they happen the least, and how can we make the environment where they happen the most more like the environment where they happen the least. So if a child has a lot of difficulties in English, and particularly in writing, but is wonderful in art, has no symptoms in art, then maybe we can, instead of having a term paper, the child might be able to do an art project to demonstrate his knowledge. We talk about anxiety and anxiety vase is getting fuller and fuller. And what we try to do is to teach the child to recognize when their vase is getting 3/4 full, and then to leave the environment so that they can go someplace and do something to reduce the vase. And typically, it's a safe person. It's a designated safe person. Now, lots of times we need at least 2 safe people, because if the child's anxiety is getting higher and higher and they go to see the safe person and the safe person isn't there, that's not going to go well. So we need another safe person. And usually it's a counselor or a school psychologist, but it can be a special teacher, it can be the principal. It really depends on who the child feels most comfortable with. Somebody that the child respects and knows that they respect the child, somebody that they have a good relationship with. I encourage having a safe person a lot. It's really important. We strongly encourage teachers to contact us for support and help.